Hello there, it's been a little while since I've uploaded. I've been busy that time of year. So this video is an addendum to my, and a natural extension of the one finger technique, the true level 1 of guitar playing. And it includes some fundamentals that I didn't mention, I think, in the first video, which I'm not going to review before I do this one. So if there's overlap, there's overlap. Step 1. Always make sure that your guitar is in tune. This is very beginner friendly. I want you to be pausing this video as and when you need and loop whichever segments you need and then practice them. Consider it call and response, but I probably won't edit this to give you the chance, so just hit pause. Okay, we just make sure that it's in tune. I won't be going through absolutely everything, although I am working on a skills sheet for every technique and how difficult they are to master, plus linking to really good examples of each. I'm doing that for myself, so I might as well share it with you whilst I do it too. Technically we don't need all these other strings right now, but I like to practice doing it and wait for that sound of the resonance. I really like it when it goes in. So I have the benefit of a high vibe guitar by Lag, which has this special preamp which can create acoustic effects. It's an actuator speaker here and here on the inside, which excites the wood and makes it its own speaker and can add effects like reverb and distortion to make it sound like a 12-string. It is the best thing ever. Not even a paid sponsorship. It's just, it changes the game. And especially for the one finger technique and very early on playing, just adding that little bit of reverb. Have you ever played a piano and then you try to play it and then you add the sustain pedal, right? And it just makes everything just work and flow a bit better and easier. That's kind of what a little bit of reverb naturally attached to your guitar can do for you. Oh, I wouldn't never go back. So, where to begin? I'll quickly review. One finger technique is, I'll just go and watch the other video, but I'll quickly review. One finger technique is just one finger. One finger on the fretboard at any time. Or more accurately, one finger that's making the sound. Because sometimes we will have two fingers, but we're only making one sound at a time, other than the drone note. Though, sometimes we don't even need the drone note. Okay, this is just going to get you used to your finger strength at the true bass level that is a good place to start. And it's also going to give you more interesting sounds than when you try to start with these chords, especially because these chords are very overdone, they're very normal sounding, and so it's really hard to get a really nice, unique and artistic or emotive atmospheric sound or vibe or something nuanced and a bit novel. It's harder to express yourself with these because they're so overdone and it feels a bit derivative, which can be the most damaging thing, which is your motivation, which boredom is the enemy and motivation is key. So this is all about ways to be playful and expressive. Okay, so it's really more feeling. Another reason why I champion calibrating on failure, trying things listening. Not because then you'll be some magical musician who can identify every note. I'm not that guy. But because then you're getting in touch with your intuitive process, your feelings, and you're trusting your instincts rather than trying to control for them with an articulation, right? Which is something I was particularly prone to, so I chose to learn this way, through trial and error and just exploration. And this is why I've got some really weird things that I write, which a lot of other people are like, what is that? I don't know. You know. But anyway. So, with this, what we're going to do is we're going to develop our finger strength. And so really the way that you should approach this is, you just choose some random numbers. And I'm doing this video for Marlena today. So, I gave her an example of anchoring on the A, second string, well, fifth string, but I consider it second from me, so second. On the A, 7, 9, 12, and 14. It's kind of irrelevant what sequence we choose, okay? We will calibrate. If it didn't sound right, we will just move one of, or three of, or all four of the notes by one up or down until it sounds nice. So if I chose 6, 9, but that doesn't sound right, I could try 5, 9. Maybe that sounds nice. 7, 9. Once I've tried 5, 9 and it works, and I try 7, 9, because I tried both sides of the 6 that I just, falsely chose just to artificially create an example. I can then now use the 5, 9, and 7 together, still with the 12 and 14. That's the value of failure, and this is what I want people to walk away with this is your failure is twice as valuable as a success because it gives you twice as many options. And even then, failure is not what you think it is, because I didn't discuss basic techniques such as palm mute, which is where you do this. So rather than getting a full, you get this sound. You can make like a chug. I have a slight rumble in my guitar because I think the wood is warped. I'm getting it fixed. So my palm mute is slightly off right now, but palm mute is really useful sometimes. As is a stop, when you just take your finger off, still resting on the string. So you're playing it, you don't always have to let it ring out fully. Sometimes you get a lot out of and just letting it stop. Palm mute, stop. Bend, where you play the note and then you pull down. There's various ways to do a bend. You can do a very quick, you can even create that sound doing this or pulling the neck. You know, I don't recommend doing that too hard, by the way, or very often. But not unless you know what you're doing. But I'm just saying, technically, it's all you're doing when you're doing a bend is increasing tension on the string, which you can only do up, which then increases the pitch, which gives you a higher note. Okay? So there's numerous ways. You've got your fast little vibration. Then you've got a slow, long and drawn out with a much deeper bend. Then you can do quick double bend. You know? And you can intermix that. What you really got to think about is how to create different nuances of sound and little pockets and sequences of sound. Think in patterns. So, we've got palm mute, we've got stop, we've got palm mute, we've got stop, we've got, which sometimes comes in with to create the beat as well. When you see a lot of guitarists doing this, I'm always doing this, creating this sound. Works as kind of a metronome. So, then you've got your bend. Another thing you have is called a slide, in which you take 7, you hold it, keep the pressure down, and move to the fret that you intend to go to, either up or down. Okay, that's a slide. One thing I recommend beginners do is with each finger, try each of these things. So exhaust your index, exhaust your middle finger, exhaust your third finger, exhaust your little finger. This one's going to be the hardest. This is one that gets the most overlooked. Even I forget to do it. So when I'm trying to do things like this, I could be better at this because I forget to do it. Start early. So an acoustic is harder than electric because electric has a much lower action and a much easier way to make noise. The acoustic really is a bit more punishing. But if it's too punishing, get a guitarist to look at it who knows what they're talking about, and maybe the action is off because it shouldn't be too hard to press down. It shouldn't be hurting. My first guitar was like that, and I didn't know any better. So I did it with really strong fingers by accident. Very painful way to do it, but yeah. It's also why I started so slowly, I think. So anyway, that's what put me on this technique. So then your last one after your slide, stop and palm mute and bend is the hammer on. So if I hold my finger on the 7 and I'm still playing the E there, remember I tend to mute these strings or hold on one way or another, but I'm plucking here, so I'll get to that in a second. So this, or pinching, sorry. So this hammer on, I'd hold the 7, I play the 7, and then I take my third finger and I hammer it on to the 9 after I've already played the 7. You can also do a pull-off, which is the opposite, in which I hold my finger here, I play the 9, then I take it off. You can do a hammer-on pull-off. That's a really common thing to do. You can also intermix. You can play this and then bend. So you can mix and match. You can slide in. Now you can start to see how you start to develop a bit more complexity and nuance, a bit more subtle with your sounds. So you also can jumble up the sequence. It doesn't have to be 7, 9, 12, 14 just because I said it that way. You can play 7, 12, 9, 14. You can slide all the way down. Okay? So, you can do any number of things. You can don't forget you can play the same note multiple times. Adding a stop in there is the space of 1. Okay, so now you've created a sequence, recycling your numbers. I'm a big fan of that. Remember I talked about proven ground. Okay, so you can now take that sequence as well and change strings. It's another good habit to get into. So you don't have to be playing the A on 7, 9, 12, and 14. You can play the E. You could try a different note as a drone there. We see that the D didn't work very well there. Typically speaking, when I'm on the E, I don't tend to do that very much. So. And then I keep the E as a drone there, just in the background, just adding a bit of girth. And then we can mix and match. We can even go to the G. And this is really, really simple stuff, you know. Like, it might not be that easy to do. You might want to get a metronome, or even, I've got a Soundbrenner, a smartwatch, which is a metronome watch. Pretty expensive way to do it, but I'm neurodivergent as fuck, so like I don't like metronomes. I find them really intrusive and distracting, so a vibrating metronome watch is really good. It's also a good way to deal with ADHD. Set it to 60 BPM, and then you'll know how long a second is, because, you know, I'm time blind. So anyway, this technique really can become expansive when you start to explore outside of the constraints that you're putting on by not exploring and trying things and not knowing a few techniques which you just mentioned. This is how you can create things like this whole song is me pinching 2 strings at once. First the E and D with my finger on the 9, 10, slide 12, back to 10, 9, move to 10 on A, twice, then I bend that 9 on the A. A good practice as well is you can repeat those first notes, and then the way you end the sequence, call and response, would be the first time you go down 10, 10, 9. The second time you do 10, 10, 12. And then that just creates this back and forth. And you'll see I do this a lot, this little trick, if you watch my videos and if you hear my music a lot. I'm all about simplicity, and there's some kind of elegance to this. This, to me, has emotion. You also don't necessarily have to follow my rule of 7, 9, 12, 14. You could try and play the 8. It might not work for you. And sometimes it will work, even though, so this is what's interesting, is this is actually you're changing scale forms and stuff, but it doesn't matter what the technical reason is. On the A, the sequence that makes sense could be 7, 9, 12, 14, or whatever sequence you've got, that you've come up with. And on the D, it might change, one of the notes could change. So instead of being a 9, it could be an 8. You can also play around with this and alternate. There's no reason why proven ground has to always be that the rule is 7, 9, 12, 14 means that you must play those on these next strings. There's not necessarily any reason for that. So you can alternate between those sometimes and get some really interesting things, especially when you add a bend into it. Because if you play a wrong fret for the sequence, so if the sequence ideally, tonally, is 7, 9, 12, 14, and you play an 8, you can bend that 8 to become the 9. You can see the string is bent there, right? Not as easy to do. You do need to have some good ears for that. And it does take a lot of getting used to. And if I'm artificially creating an example, as always, I will typically fail because I'd rather be in the flow of whatever it is I'm trying to do. So, plus I hate cameras. So, yeah, this whole thing here. Now, what's really interesting is this means that there's no bad frets. Not only do bad frets, combinations that don't sound nice, equal twice as much successes because they instantly inform you where your next best choices can be, but will sound nice. A fret can add a wailing quality. And remember that your bends are going to have more potency about halfway along the string, which is about 12th fret. It's exactly 12th fret. You're going to be able to bend that a lot, as well as here. It's much harder to bend like the 2nd fret. You just don't have as much leverage. There's just no way. It's much harder to do. It hurts. So it's also about, so this actually reduces your options, which is good. It seems like a lot, but you can get really clever, and I encourage you to explore and try different combinations of things. I'm going to continue by explaining that you actually have proven ground, which is great. I've already shown you that. But when you play 7 on the A, if you look at some of the octave maps that I'm going to be releasing, you'll see that you automatically unlock the 2nd fret on D when you play 7 on A because it's the same frequency. It just sounds slightly different because the string is physically thinner. See, so that's just a bit thicker. And this is really, really interesting when you mix it and match it with proven ground. So when you play 7, 9, 12, 14, you can recreate that exact sequence, or those frequencies, on the D string by playing 2, 4, 7, and 9. But it sounds slightly different. So then that means now if you bring in your bends and your slides and you play a certain sequence, like I was playing. So if I played that the first time, this is now dynamics. It gives you just a little bit more life force, right? It just gives you all these little tricks that can bring it and elevate it, because of course you are only playing one string, and it's a bit of a simpler sound. That's not bad necessarily. Sometimes I think when we play all of the strings all at once, and that's all we do when we strum to create this wall of constant sound, we lose a lot of dynamics, as we do when our timing is always, if someone can take your song and every song, as soon as you start playing, they can tap along with, or a drummer could instantly play without having heard the song, that suggests to me a lack of exploration in different, like more slack timings that might be just a little bit harder. Your choices could be a bit too obvious. Even if your chords are very interesting, your timing is still needing a bit of life force, a little bit of dynamics, a little bit of... That's to me, and that's the game I play, which makes it very hard for people to play on with me, but that's fine. I could play that way, but I get bored, and once again, motivation is key, and I get bored extremely easily. So, which is a curse, but a gift. So anyway, I choose to lean into the gift. So basically, what I was saying, because I'm getting distracted, because I'm seeing the little timer and I don't like cameras. So, trying to remember everything. I mentioned mutes, I mentioned palm mutes, I mentioned stops, mute, stop, bend, slide, hammer on, pull off. Yep, proven ground. Mixing it up so you don't always have to follow the sequence. Yeah, I've mentioned a lot of things, but I didn't. And then I mentioned this, the 2, 4, 7, 9, which is the exact same as 7, 9, 12, 14 on the A. Okay? That was just on the D there, in case that wasn't obvious. So, what I wanted to mention is that because of proven ground, when we come here from the 7, 9, 12, 14, and we move to the D, and we unlock that 2 and 4, we can apply that to the same string we were playing. So we can now add 2, 4 on the A, right? Then 7, 9, 12. It's an easy way to unlock some options. So when we play the E with a drone and do 2, 4, 7, 9, and we now know that we can play 7, 9, 12, 14 here, and which then also then unlocks more space because we can now play 7, 9, 12, 14 on the D. So proven ground and repeated octaves are so potent. So it means that if we create any sequence, 7, 9, 12, 14, we unlock so many options on different strings that are the same frequency but a different thickness, which is an example I used for this riff. I go like, which is a good way to learn the fretboard, because when we play this D sharp and E here, and then we play the next string on this fret, we learn that that's an A, and the A is here as well. I'm on the B doing 4, 5, and then the 5th fret on the high E is the same note as this one. And look how different they sound. Same frequencies sound very different. Especially if you have a loop, these can add nuance and dynamics. So that's where your artistry comes in, and then you can trick people into thinking you're somehow better than you are. Right, people are very easily impressed. So to be fair, the time spent doing this is impressive, but it's not actually as complicated as people make it. So anyway, as I was saying, these two compound, right? So because you have repeated notes, proven ground also compounds with that. So 2, 4, 2, 4, 7, 9 being 7, 9, 12, 14. Both of those strings have now got extra options than separate without those rules. So proven ground means we can go 2, 4, 7, 9 is the equivalent of 12 and 14 anyway. But now we can still play the 12th fret and the 14th fret on the D. And we can still play that on the G as well. Right? And if we're plucking the E, we can actually keep playing and move those sequences onto the B, though we do need to remember that the B has a slightly different rule in which it's not 7 is equal to 2, and that's because the B is here instead of here. So if the B was a C, it would still work, I think. Yeah, it would. But anyway, but then we would lose that great connection between the high B and E. Anyway. It just means that you can do a lot of things here. So it means that we could go just playing with those numbers and recycling them. And now we can add also a little trick there for you. If you pluck both open and then you quickly hammer on, you unlock a little extra note before. You'll see I do this a lot. I get 3 notes instead of 2 for the actions of my fingers. It's a little tricky way. It wasn't the best example ever, but. So you get these really weird sounds, and these sounds for a Western person who's mostly exposed to Western music, they're going to come off a little bit Arabic, a little bit Spanish sometimes, quite a lot. They're going to come off as a little bit Asian sometimes. That's partially to do with the scale forms. It's partially to do with how small our world is in the West for the 12-tone equal temperament, which I suggest you look up. And when you're bending anyway, you're playing microtonally. So when I go, I'm taking the note and just bending the pitch into what's called a microtone, which is a note between the standard gaps that we have arbitrarily assigned in Western Standard. So that's very much worth looking into. But it gives, especially when you wiggle your chords, instead of playing straight all the time, just wiggle it. Just gives it this life, and that's your negative space you're playing with the timing as well. that's not one finger technique, but it still applies. That wiggle is really powerful. One of the most heartbreaking songs I ever wrote starts out this way, and it shows that you can play you can play each fret in a row if you want, getting closer to chromatic scales. That's just 12, 13, 14 with an E drone. 9, 10, 12, 7, 9, 9, 10, 9, 7, 6. I'll just play it for you, and I'll give you the diagrams using my spreadsheet diagrams to show you another time. Try and pay attention to the subtleties of the bends and the slides and the hammer-ons. Because if I just played this simple, it will lose all its life compared to That's another thing of dynamics, is how hard do you pluck the string? Very, very different. And in this song, I'm messing around with how hard I bend, how far I bend, how fast I bend. I'm playing around with a lot of different techniques, trying to make it so that each time I do this, I mess around with a different aspect. I would play this, and the first time I might do a deep bend. So the first time I play it, I'll play it straight and not so hard. Then the next note I might bend a little wiggle. Then the third one I would bend really hard. And I'd swap around and keep mixing that up, so as I go through the sequence, it never quite sounds the same. Getting a snap in there of a hard bend. A very subtle slide that was in there. These embellishments make all the difference. Doing my little trick. That. Okay, so that's a really nice song when I get into it, but it's pretty heavy as well. My goal was to just feel things again and to make myself cry, and that one did it. I was in a great mood when I wrote it, not when I finished it I wasn't, but yeah. Anyway, it's a very personal song as well, but anyway, I'll get there. So as you see, you've got these different techniques, and I'm going to try and write that up a bit better in the description, but pause and rewind, ask all the questions. I'm now attaching a Google form, which leads to a spreadsheet. It's all interconnected and self-explanatory. Over-explained because that's my standard, you know. But anyway, so that is all about you getting involved. Send me clips of yourself, links to things, great examples of things, resources, questions, feedback. You can be brutal. If I'm doing something bad or I've forgotten something, tell me. If you know better, improve. I want to create like a communal thing here. Or at the very least, excuse myself bad critique form if you won't get involved and I've opened the door. If you don't play along, then I will ignore you. That's only fair. I've given you every tool possible, every invitation to play. So, yeah, I think that's it for today. This just extends my one finger technique and it introduces to you. And my goal for you is to exhaust your fingers, make your fingers tired. It only takes 10-20 minutes. Especially when you first start, it might not even take that long. And just do this. And just see as and when it breaks and as and when it doesn't quite sound nice. And then try to... And at this, sliding your finger around. You know, because you can overdo it. If I played it every time, that creates a very different sound than just dragging it along and playing with sustain. Getting a very squeaky sound right now, and I've turned the reverb off. I'll turn it back on. I do prefer it. You know. Yeah, that's much better. Puts the squeak into its place. So that is basically everything you need to know about one finger technique, other than grabbing a capo. So you could try this. You can keep the numbers exactly as they are. You can put the capo in different places and see what the different sounds you get are, especially as you explore the fretboard. That is way more powerful with two-finger technique, which obviously you can intermix and play with one-finger technique as well. So hopefully this unlocks some more options for you, and especially for Marlena, who should be playing guitar right now, and I bet you're not. But it's fine. I will march my ass down there. Don't doubt me. Don't question me, because I will. I will be like, boom, you're doing it. Right, see ya. And I'm off. So yes, if you would ever want to get in touch, check out the Google form. See what my project and my approach is all about, because it's all about trying to be as open as possible and as casual as possible, to be honest, because that's most accessible to me. I have a new light, thanks to the feedback. So it lights things up as I'm doing them, and you know, can create some interesting effects depending on where we put it. So we're going to try and improve everything here. So this is simple stuff, the basics, true basics. Don't decide that you've quit. Don't decide that you can't do it until you've got all that going on, you know? Until you've given it a try, and always try some alternative way. Don't ever quit. That's the trick. That's the only trick you need. Don't ever quit. Just be tenacious. Play on the bus. Take a guitar with you everywhere. If you live in a cold climate, I suggest a carbon fiber guitar by Close, K-L-O-S. They are indestructible practically. I fell off a unicycle and I'm a big dude, you know, fully onto the pavement, barely even scratched it, still in tune. Beautiful. You can just dunk it in the thing, it doesn't warp. They're amazing. A little bit more expensive, but you know, don't destroy your beautiful guitars. I might go full carbon fiber, to be honest. Starting to waffle, aren't I? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another one.